I want you to imagine something for a second. Picture that very specific, quiet moment at the end of a long, chaotic day.
Oh yeah, the one we're all desperate for by about 5 p.m.
Exactly. You know the one. You've been answering emails all day, commuting, maybe stepping over a stray Lego in the hallway, just dealing with the relentless noise of the world.
Right.
And then finally, you step into a room and a single door closes behind you. You are completely alone in the best possible way.
It's the ultimate exhale.
It really is.
Right.
And that feeling is exactly what we're diving into today. We're looking at some fascinating excerpts from a piece simply titled The Interior of Bathroom. And I have to tell you right out of the gate, well, it's absolutely not your standard home renovation guide.
No, definitely not. We are not talking about plumbing here.
Right. We are not going to talk about the most efficient way to maximize your under-sink storage.
Okay.
This is a profound exploration of how architecture and materials can take a highly functional, often utilitarian room and completely transform it into a deeply personal, private retreat.
It's an incredibly ambitious premise, honestly. Taking a room we typically associate with rushed mornings and pure utility, and elevating it to the level of a sanctuary.
Yeah.
The core thesis of these excerpts argues that a thoughtfully designed space crosses this invisible threshold. The author puts it beautifully, saying it's where architecture softens and materials begin to speak.
Materials begin to speak. I love that.
Right. It's an exploration of moving from a space of pure function to a space of pure feeling, where the environment itself actively contributes to your psychological decompression.
Okay, let's unpack this because the text immediately slips the script on what we usually think of when we hear the word luxury.
It really does.
I mean, if you scroll through social media or open a glossy design magazine, luxury usually looks like loud excess.
Oh, absolutely. Gold hardware everywhere.
Yes. Massive crystal chandeliers hanging over a tub. Just more of everything to signal wealth. But our source material points out a surprising fact. True luxury in these intimate spaces is rarely about excess at all.
It's actually about proportion.
Yes, it's about restraint.
And that restraint is defined here as the choreography of space, which is just a brilliant way to frame it because choreography implies movement. It implies flow.
It sounds almost like a dance.
Exactly. Think about the physical layout of the rooms you spend time in. The most compelling restorative bathrooms begin with openness. The source details these very specific spatial dynamics.
Like having generous circulation space around the freestanding tub.
Yes, and leaving literal breathing room between the vanity and the shower. Not cramming things together, and utilizing ceilings that allow light to travel completely uninterrupted.
I want to pause on that term, spatial dynamics, because it sounds a bit academic, but it's something we all feel instinctively. It's the literal physical distance between objects and how that dictates our movement.
Right, your body reacts to the space.
Exactly. When you have to squeeze past a toilet to get to a shower, your body physically tenses up. You are navigating an obstacle course. But when there is generous circulation, your shoulders actually drop.
Precisely. The psychological impact of this choreography is immense. When a physical space feels expansive, the human mind settles. We stop feeling cramped or rushed because the architecture is no longer imposing limitations on our movement.
It's not forcing you to pivot and dodge.
No, the room is giving you permission to move slowly.
It's like the room is physically exhaling. And what's fascinating is that this feeling of expansiveness doesn't stop with the interior walls. The text talks about completely dissolving the boundary between the inside and the outside world.
That's where it gets really magical.
Think about using broad panes of glass or these incredible floor-to-ceiling wooden doors. It just blurs the line between the interior of the bathroom and the landscape outside.
And dissolving that boundary with glass and large doors does something even more profound than just offering a nice view. It invites time itself into the room. Yeah, the source describes this beautiful dance of light, noting how natural daylight washes across surfaces and changes the mood of the room throughout the day.
Right, the morning light versus the evening light.
Exactly. The morning light is described as cool and direct. It sharpens the intricate veining of marble and wakes up the senses. But the late afternoon light does something completely different. It casts longer, softer shadows and warms the grain of the wood.
So you aren't just standing in a static artificial box.
No, you're actively experiencing the passage of the day.
So if the layout and the light create this feeling of breathing room, what actually grounds you in that space? That brings us to what the text literally calls the true protagonist of the design, the materiality.
It is all about the materials.
Let's talk about the foundation of stone they describe because it is incredibly specific. Underfoot, they highlight honed travertine.
Which is such a gorgeous choice.
It really is. And for those who might not spend their weekends browsing stone yards, honed just means the stone is ground down to a smooth, matte finish instead of being highly polished.
Right, it doesn't have that mirror shine.
Because it lacks that glossy shine, it diffuses light rather than reflecting it harshly. It feels cool, it feels grounded, and most importantly, it's visually quiet.
But a room that is entirely visually quiet can easily slip into feeling sterile or flat.
That's true.
That's why you need contrast. The text places that muted, matte travertine underfoot, but then contrasts it with a highly polished, dramatic slab of marble placed intentionally behind a freestanding tub.
Oh, so that polished marble slab isn't just a wall covering.
No, it's framed as a moment of quiet trauma. The natural veining of that marble acts as a piece of art. And the beauty of it is that it's an art created by geological forces over millions of years.
It never repeats.
Never. And it is never predictable. It forces you to look closely and appreciate a completely unique signature of the earth right there in your private space.
I have to play devil's advocate here, though.
You for it.
You put in travertine floors, you put in a massive slab of polished marble on the wall. Doesn't a room full of stone run the risk of feeling like a cold, echoing mausoleum? Where is the warmth?
That is the exact trap many high-end designs fall into, which is why the source introduces the warmth of wood as a necessary counterweight.
Ah, okay.
They specifically mention incorporating solid walnut or pale oak. The wood acts as an organic, living material to balance the cold, mineral solidity of the stone.
And the way they incorporate that wood is really deliberate. They use the concept of a floating vanity. Instead of a heavy cabinet that sits directly on the floor, the vanity is mounted to the wall so it literally hovers above the ground.
Which looks incredible.
It does, but my immediate practical thought is, wait, where do I hide the extra toilet paper and the jumbo bottles of mouthwash if I lose that bottom storage?
It's a fair point, and it speaks to that balance of atmosphere over pure utility. The functional trade-off is often worth it for the visual and psychological effect.
Because it makes the room feel bigger.
Exactly. By having the vanity float off the floor, you immediately lighten the visual weight of the entire room. You see more of that continuous honed floor we talked about, which tricks the eye into perceiving the room as expansive.
That makes sense.
Furthermore, the text emphasizes that a floating vanity is a showcase for human craftsmanship. They highlight the joinery.
Right, which is the skillful way the pieces of wood are interlocked without relying on glaring nails or screws.
Yes, they focus on the joinery, the careful direction of the wood grain, and the tactile finish.
So you're setting up a conversation. When you pair that highly crafted warm oak or walnut with a quartzite, countertop quartzite being an incredibly hard, natural metamorphic rock menace, you are setting up a deliberate dialogue between organic warmth and mineral solidity.
That is a highly intentional balance.
Right.
It ensures the room never feels like a sterile laboratory, but also never feels too heavy or rustic.
And that dialogue is punctuated by the hardware. The source includes a very subtle note on metal accents. It mentions using a brushed brass fixture against soft limestone.
Or choosing a matte nickel to place against a darker stone.
Those micro choices matter immensely. Those small shifts in tone alter the entire atmosphere without demanding your attention.
It adds depth to the visual field, but, and this is a key phrase from the source, without noise.
Without noise, I love that. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. The walls themselves. We tend to think of walls as just flat, painted drywall holding up the ceiling.
It's just a blank canvas.
Right, but the text argues that texture on the walls completely transforms the human experience of the room. They highlight hand-applied clay plaster.
Which is stunning in person.
Because it's literally troweled on by human hands, it carries this subtle movement and irregularity. It actually absorbs light rather than bouncing it around like standard semi-gloss paint.
It gives the walls a softness that feels almost fabric-like.
Yes, and then that softness is contrasted with the rhythm of mosaic tiles.
The source mentions mosaics made of glass, ceramic, or natural stone, particularly in the shower area. The repetition of those small tiles creates a profound sense of intimacy.
But a standout detail is the mention of a river stone mosaic underfoot in the shower. Imagine that tactile sensation on the arches of your feet.
It's not just a waterproof floor, it's a physical intervention.
Exactly. You step on those smooth, rounded stones, and you are instantly connected to the somatic feeling of wading into a riverbed. It physically grounds the body in a natural texture.
It's a completely visceral detail. But speaking of visceral, The text brings up a material that actually shocked me for a bathroom.
The exposed brick.
Yes, exposed brick. My first thought was that sounds like a total nightmare for moisture, steam, and mold. How does the source justify bringing something so porous into a wet space?
It's a highly counterintuitive choice, which is why the text explicitly specifies that the brick has to be preserved with care, meaning it requires specialized sealants and proper ventilation to function in that environment.
Okay, that makes more sense.
But when it is properly executed, it contributes an amazing sense of heritage and rugged warmth. The magic happens in the juxtaposition.
Right, placing that rough, historical, slightly imperfect brick directly adjacent to those highly refined, smooth marble surfaces we talked about earlier.